And here we are once again, fight fans. This time you are not only getting the Loud and Opinionated and the Blockhead, you are getting the official first ever triple threat. Ladies and gentlemen, we have on the show Rated JG and we have Loud and Opinionated. We're going at it for the first ever YFB triple threat. Some of y'all are familiar with the Pardon the Interruption on ESPN. Some of y'all know Ariel and the bad guy for MMA. But this time it's Russ, Justin, and Brian. So, gentlemen, what's going on?
Not a whole lot, man. Ready to talk some fights.
Yeah. How about you, Russ?
That was a little delayed reaction there. We didn't know who was going to go first.
You know, that always falls back on the host, too, because I say guys, and they're like, who goes first? And you're like, just make yourself known. Just get yourself out there. But, you know, again, I'm excited to have JG on here because last time it was just you and me, Russ. It was the Blockhead and Loud and Opinionated at the brick wall. And this time we're going to have a little bit of some mediation between each other. So I'm going to try to see if I can pull this off. We got 3 rounds that we're going to do, 3 minutes each for each guy. And you'll see I got my beautiful little artwork here that we can do. Round 1, first thing to talk about. We have an official fight that's happening. We have Khabib versus Justin Gaethje that's been designated for October 21st. So I'm going to start with you, JG. Let's just say that what can fans expect out of this one when it comes to Khabib coming back and Gaethje trying to make his way up and take what's his up top of the mountain, his piece of the pie, and have his chance to the championship. So what can fans expect with Khabib versus Gaethje coming up soon?
Well, I think all fight fans, whenever the name Khabib gets brought up, you kind of hold your breath and hope that the fight even comes to fruition because we've been let down so many times with build-ups and then nothing even happens.
Yes,
but
sure.
If and when this fight does happen in October, there's no more of a deserving opponent than Justin Gaethje. I mean, the guy completely dismantled one of my favorite, and I'm pretty sure like a consensus favorite if you're a fight fan, Mr. Tony Ferguson. You know, El Cucuy is absolutely no walk in the park. He is a legend. He's going to be a no doubt Hall of Famer. He has completely ruined the faces and some careers of people in this fight game with his elbows and just he's a freak. But I mean, when you watch that fight, even as a diehard Tony fan, I mean, it was all Gaethje from start to finish. So I think that number one, I mean, this guy definitely deserves to be there. There's no doubt about it. And I think in his camp with Trevor Whitman, who is a MMA savant, the best coach pretty much unanimously across the board. You know, when Gaethje and Whitman like join forces and they have the number one, you know, Gaethje's got the talent, but for a coach like Whitman to hone that talent in and come in with a game plan for something, you can't even make a game plan for Tony Ferguson. There is no game plan for the boogeyman. You just go in there and hope to survive. And then for him to do what he did, I think it kind of speaks numbers to what he's got going on in his camp. So there's that. But once he gets to this Khabib fight, Khabib is known for the wrestling. Khabib is known for the ground and pound. Khabib is known for smothering you till you can't breathe and just sucking the life out of you. But I think stylistically, everybody will agree that Gaethje is the hardest matchup Khabib has ever and possibly will ever see. I think that he matches up completely like the antithesis of what Khabib is. And the thing that's even more scary about Gaethje is, first off, he can strike. I mean, dude's got toaster ovens for hands. I mean, he can absolutely just drop anybody at any time. But people forget that he is a world-class wrestler. He is one of those guys that hasn't necessarily shown his wrestling so much because he hasn't necessarily had to. But I think whenever you come into a situation like Khabib, you're going to get to the ground, or at least attempted. There's no doubt about it. So that wrestling is going to come into play. So if I had to make a prediction on it, I would say that just due to the flawless record, I would still have to give Khabib the edge. I love Justin Gaethje. I have nothing against Justin Gaethje. I think he is a phenomenal fighter. But I think that Khabib losing his father, who is also his role model, who is widely respected as one of the greatest people in the game, I think that Khabib, number one, doesn't need a source of encouragement or, motivation for the fight. But for him to lose his driving force, the guy who has been there from start to finish. I think that he's going to have an extra chip on his shoulder, and that's going to make him even more scary.
Well said. That was I don't know if the ship bell's going to even go through on this one because I got the Zoom set up with my headphones. Either way, if it does or it doesn't, great. Well done on that one, JG. I'm setting the clock for you, Loud and Opinionated. This is your time. Let it roll, buddy.
Coming up with this one is, I mean, you don't have to really say much more than what Justin just said there. You know, it's going to be one of the toughest fights for Khabib, and Khabib having a layoff that he's had. You know, is there ring rust? Well, who knows? But, I mean, in my opinion, just kind of like what Justin said, after losing, excuse me, after losing your father, and then you're going to go back into fight, you're going back to fight with purpose. And you're not going to go back to fight with – you're going back in there to prove something, to have a statement when right after you lost one of your biggest fans in your entire camp. But with Gaethje, I mean, like Gilly said, Gaethje is going to be one of the toughest ones that he's ever fought. And not only look what he did to Khabib, but look what he's done to everybody that he's fought in the last 2 years. Sorry, I'm parched. But you know, if you wanted me to give a prediction, I don't think I would put it past Gaethje to walk in there and probably just out wrestle the entire guy. But I mean, the man did wrestle a bear, so you know, what do? I don't have 3 minutes to talk because Gilly said it all.
I'll give you that, brother. I'll give you the ship bell a little bit early. No, there's nothing to be ashamed of there. It's just, you know, that's the thing about us is that I don't think most of the time that we have a whole lot we disagree on. I'd say at least 80% of the time we're pretty close, pretty on par with each other. When it comes down to what my thought is, what you mentioned about Ferguson and Gaethje is that if that Justin Gaethje does show up, the one who fought Tony Ferguson, we might have a very different story coming up here. On the other side, I feel like we did a huge discredit last time when we worried about the mental mindset of Thug Rose, and we saw how that worked out. So I agree with you on that one, Russ, about we can't use the mental game here. Khabib coming in and wanting to get number 29 is a big deal. So that kind of Khabib coming in too, let's just speculate for a second. Let's say we got 10 seconds left on, you know, the clicks that are happening right at the end of the fight. We'll just say this last 10 seconds. Let's speculate for a second. Let's say that Khabib does come in and beats Gaethje. We got 29-0. Number 30, this has been speculated. It has even been mentioned on Dana White's lips. He said, I like the idea. Khabib is asking for it. I think it's all up to the guy to take it. Let's just say it does happen, and the 30th fight is going to be against George St. Pierre. JG, what do you think would happen if we get that dream match with Khabib versus George St. Pierre?
Well, it has been said on my show many times that George St. Pierre is the reason I started watching UFC, MMA, the whole 9 yards. I think he is bar none the best fighter. He is the epitome of a mixed martial artist. That being said, he has done something that not all mixed martial artists can do or can say that they've done, is he's retired the right way. Go away. You came back. You have nothing to prove. Nothing. And he walked away with grace. He walked away on top. He is probably, other than Anderson Silva and John Jones, he is probably the consensus greatest mixed martial artist of all time, regardless of who you talk to, regardless what country you're from, what your ethnicity, your gender, you're probably going to say GSP. And my hope is, yes, that is kind of, cool to think about, but I hope he stays away because he's also 39 years old or 38. And I don't want to see him cut to 55 because Khabib's not leaving. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see a almost 40-year-old George St. Pierre sucking down to 155 to go fight this monster, from the mountains of Russia. Like, I really don't want to watch that. That is coming from a massive George St. Pierre fan. Like, I hope that it doesn't happen. If it does, I'm going to pull for George St. Pierre. He could fight anybody in the entire world, and I would always pull for him. I just hope it doesn't come to that because I think that he has done something that fighters can't do. He hung it up and walked away at the right time. He doesn't have that fighter syndrome where, oh, I've got one in me, I've got one more to give. He did it the right way. I hope he stays away.
Russ, any antithesis to that, or are you just going to go along with it and just say I agree?
I don't agree. I kind of want to see this fight. And the only reason I say that is we had GSP versus Bisping, and we watched this at Gilly's house, and we lost our minds when he just murked Bisping that entire fight. And he came out of retirement and said he was going to come in there and win the belt, and he did it. Could he do it again? I honestly think he could. I think he could do it again. I think the guy probably stays in great shape. A cut probably wouldn't be that bad for him. And I would want to see the matchup. That's saying that if Gaethje doesn't go in there and beat him. But if we do get it, I'm all for it. And like Gilly said, and I agree with him on that, I'm going to cheer my ass off for it. I mean, there's not a bone in my body that's not going to go for GSP in this situation if it happens.
You know, I've actually got some thoughts on this now, too. Before we get to round two, again, this is all just a wish list. This is all just people have been talking about it. But I have to kind of go with Gilly on this one about how the weight cut does change the entire narrative for all of this. But I have to disagree with you on this one, Justin, only because that he has definitely done retirement right, but the itch comes back to him when he starts to actually work out in the gym. Then he goes home and he goes, you know what? I don't think I want to go through another training camp. I truly believe what John McCarthy said once, that all fighters have fear. It's what they fear. It's different. He's not fearful of Khabib. He's not fearful of that. He's more of if he goes back and says, I know that I can do this, and he has to face people coming home to Canada. But that's where most of the time that the people say that when they talk to him and go, yeah, I want to get in there, but then I go and enjoy time with my family. And I think, man, do I have to go through an excruciating training camp? And that would be a different type of training camp to go down to 155. That takes him out of his, where he gets his honey punches in, which is the welterweight division. So 170 is where he's shined through and through. But again, it's all just speculation at this point. That's just to have fun with that. Now, what I got to get to this point now is round two. Again, my beautiful artwork starting off round two. We do have an uprising star on our hands, at least currently in the moment. We have a guy who is turning heads. And if I mispronounce his name, I'm going to probably mess it up right out of the gates. But Zot Chimaev, out of Fight Island, having the fastest turnaround victory in the history of the UFC. We've got an 8-day period where he wins, comes back, wins again. So my question I have to start with you, JG, is this. Are we looking at a guy who just happened to find his sweet spot? He found his honey punch on Fight Island, and that's all we're going to see? Or do we have a dud, or do we have a serious potential stud in Chimaev coming into the UFC after we get out of Fight Island? The floor is yours, buddy.
Man, that one's tough. I mean, there's absolutely no denying that the guy is tough. I mean, and skillful to say the least, because anybody that can turn around within, less than 10 days in the conditions that they were in on Fight Island, and to come out and win incredibly decisive in the second fight. He won both. The first one was, a win. And the second one was one of the most dominating. I think he landed 60 plus strikes to legitimately 0 for his opponent. I mean, if you're looking at this on paper, you would think, oh my gosh, this guy's fighting twice within a week's time span. This second fight, he's probably going to drag it out to a decision if he even gets to that point. And he comes out and makes a statement like that. I mean, that's unbelievable. I don't care what division you're in. I don't care how many fights you've had. I mean, these guys are professional fighters. They are natural born killers. They are paid to rip each other's heads off. So he's not in there fighting scrubs. He's not in there fighting, the JV roster. These are legit guys. And he's in a crazy time zone, and he's facing the elements that are in Abu Dhabi, and they're fighting at like 3 a.m. our time. And there's so many factors that go into it. And to go out and do things like he did in, like I said, 8 to 10 days, whatever it was, I think anybody that pulls something like that off is going to be someone worth keeping your eye on. So I don't think he's a dud. I think that he's definitely got some star power there. They just need to give the guy a little bit of a break. He probably won't want it, but he needs it.
I guess we're cashing in the last minute there, but we got to 2 minutes. That's not bad. So I hand that back over to Loud and Opinionated. Do you have a rebuttal, or are you going to just kind of ride the coattail of what JG has to say?
I mean, I kind of agree. I'd really like to see more out of the guy. I mean, only seeing those 2 fights, I personally would rather see more. Yeah, you took 2 fights that quick and you had 2 statement wins. Yes, that is awesome to do, but you were fight ready. I mean, you dominated your first fight, and obviously you dominated your second fight. I would like to see what it looks like when he comes back over here. He gets on a normal schedule. He gets on a normal time zone. He has his normal rest. He has, the normal parts of his training that goes on. And then, okay, we'll see if you're top 10 worthy or top 15 worthy. I think it's too common in the UFC that a guy makes two statement wins, that they push them to a big fight and they basically just get their head knocked in. You look at a situation like what you had with Derek Lewis, who had a couple of statement wins, and then they threw him in there with DC, and DC just worked him and just dominated him the entire fight, wrestled him, everything. And even Derek Lewis said after the fight, he was like, I need to do more cardio. Well, he wanted to train more, and then the UFC threw, that flash of gold at him, and his opinion totally changed. And he was like, okay, let's do it. So with this guy here, could it happen? Yeah, but I think they need to, give him some more lower tier guys, and then let him build up to it. Let him build up to where he can fight a guy like, what division is he in? I just drew a blank. Middle?
I'm wanting to say it's middle. Is that right, JG?
That's what I thought.
I believe so, yeah.
He's in the middleweight. We talked about the middleweight last time, Brian, and the middleweight is a division.
Or maybe.
Well,
is he
granted, if he is in middleweight, if he is, he's surrounded by, very deadly waters out there. So, yeah.
Is he middleweight?
Well, I haven't bothered looking it up on my phone.
I can't Google. I'm on my
he's welterweight. Phone. Okay, so he's 170. Okay.
Okay, so he definitely either way, it's one of those.
That definitely.
Go ahead.
That definitely makes more sense of why he called out Connor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Did you hear the story? Did y'all hear the story about what happened with him and Connor back in the day when the whole
before we
happened?
get to round 3? You have my attention already. Go for it.
Yeah, so he apparently, I mean, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that he tried to when the whole Khabib thing happened, like the aftermath of that fight. I'm pretty sure that he tried to drive or take a boat. I don't know where he's from. Honestly, I know it's somewhere European. Yeah, well, he fights out of Sweden, but I don't know if I don't know. Anyways, he's not from here, but he tried to go to Ireland. Tried to go to Ireland to fight Connor, on his own accord, and he got caught up in customs, and they held him there for a week or something like that. So he was taking it into his own hands. Wow. He was like, I'm gonna go kill this guy on my own. I don't care if it's not a sanctioned fight or anything. He was gonna go to Connor's hometown and go fight him. I'm like, this dude's crazy.
Dude's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, even whether it's welterweight or middleweight, I've just mentioned that we've talked about this so many times before. Those divisions have so many sharks that are swimming in the moat. You have so many guys that are trying to be the gatekeeper for that one. So it's either way, he's walking into a very interesting time in MMA. But as far as round 3 goes, I mean, this was even discussed before we talked, but I feel like prior to we getting to Stipe and DC3, which is what we all want, we do have an event coming up this Saturday, and it seems like they're going to be just fighting for the rankings. It's like these guys are trying to climb the ladder. But we have a well-known H-Town Houston native, Derek Lewis, that's going to be in the main event. So Derek Lewis versus Alexei Olenek. What can we expect with that kind of fight, do you think, JG? But also, don't forget to throw out the baby with the bathwater. We still have other guys fighting for that for their division, which is Amari Akbanov versus Chris Weidman, which is the co-main event. So what can we expect with this Friday night, JG, starting with you? Or this Saturday night?
Well, as far as the Weidman fight is concerned, I mean, I'm kind of like on the fence about it. You got an up and comer in the guy that he's fighting, and then Weidman is a staple in all MMA fans, memories. This guy did notorious for the Anderson Silva fight, but like I think he's still got enough in the tank where he's not just written off as like a old crafty veteran. Like he's still, a fighter. So I don't personally know too much about the fight, or excuse me, about his opponent. So that being said, I'm just going to chalk it up to my own ignorance because I haven't been paying attention to that. And I'm going to give Weidman the nod on that one. But the Derek Lewis and is it Olenek? Yeah.
Yeah, it's Olenek.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to say, so as far as that fight's concerned, Olenek beat Fabricio Verdum his last fight pretty decisively. And that says something because Fabricio Verdum turned around and beat the brakes off of Alexander Gustafsson. Granted, it's Gus's first fight at heavyweight, and he was coming off of retirement. I say with my quotation hands here, but like I think that's worth noting. Olenek's known for having a chin, and you're going to need that whenever you're fighting Derek Lewis, who is known kind of basically as a one-trick pony. The guy's going to come out with that overhand right that he's knocked people into different zip codes with, and that's worked for him this far. I think that it's going to be kind of the stereotypical heavyweight fight. They're not going to have a lot of gas in the tank. They're going to go out there and just throw haymakers at each other and see who falls first, which is totally okay. We need that every now and then. I think that this fight kind of lends itself to what the heavyweight division is currently at the moment, in the sense that it's not too exciting other than a couple of names. A lot of these guys are getting up there in age. Heavyweight's known for that. As you get older, you kind of pack on the pounds and, you end up in that division. But other than the headliner for August 15th, Stipe and DC, Derek Lewis is one of the more well-known names because of his out of the octagon antics and in the octagon comments. But like, I feel like if I don't want to say that he's fading like out of memory, but in a sense he kind of is. Other than when you think of Derek Lewis, you don't really think of Derek Lewis the fighter. You think of him as the funny guy, which is fine. Build your brand. But I think that he has a chance here to kind of put his name back in the conversation as far as heavyweights are concerned. So if he ends up doing what Derek Lewis is known for and takes Olenek out, I mean, that's not going to be something that everybody looks over, especially in that division. He can kind of get his name back up there with the Curtis Blades and people of that nature. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll see what happens.
That was actually a really good time. Right there at the end. That was pretty good time in 3 minutes, almost right on the button. I'll hand off to you.
Cool. Yeah, sorry. I'm flying blind. I don't know if you can hear or see Russell, but I don't know anything. I don't have a timer or anything, so I'm just kind of going.
No, it just kind of happened that way. Hey, let me brag on you a little bit, but go ahead, Russ. What you got?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta say that the heavyweight division is just, you've got maybe 4 guys in there right now that are going to be entertaining and put up good fights, and then you've got your bottom half that are going to be slow, probably gassed by the middle of the second round, if not the end of the first. With Derek Lewis, I mean, the man said it so himself that he needed to work on his cardio, and if the man hadn't worked on his cardio, then knocking out Oleg, you better have a Mack truck, because that dude's got one heck of a chin. If you're gonna walk away from that fight and say, okay, Derek Lewis wins. Well, okay, what does Derek Lewis do next? Curtis Blades, what does he do next? Do we get somebody like Derek Lewis and Tanner Bozer, the guy who was on Fight Island, who had two wins down there? Younger guy, missing a tooth, Canadian with a mullet. I'm already a fan. And then if you have Olenek, just let him do the same thing. Do I have any doubt in my mind that the heavyweight division is I don't want to say the least talented division, but it's the least entertaining at times. You have to – the only three right now in that heavyweight division that people are going to think of when they think of you, if they're a moderate UFC fan, they're going to think of Francis Ngannou, they're going to think of DC, and they're going to think of Stipe. And that's really all they're going to think of. They're not going to think of, they're going to think of Derek Lewis, but they're going to think of Derek Lewis as my balls is hot. They're not going to think of Derek Lewis as UFC heavyweight champion. Is that possible for Derek Lewis? I don't know. This will be the first time we've seen Derek Lewis in quite some time. So if Derek Lewis comes out and he looks like he's in decent shape and he doesn't have an H-Town beer gut going on, then, maybe we'll be seeing a different side of Derek Lewis. But Alexei Olenek isn't no punk, and it'll be interesting to see. Like Gilly said, he made Fabricio look dumb, and then Fabricio made Gustafsson look dumb, which I was really upset about. But I don't know. I'll go with these. I mean, not these shit. I'll go with the Black Beast on this one and stick with my home state buddy. Brian, your mic.
I was trying again playing with the ship bell, and it doesn't do what I want it to do either way. It's a nice idea that I have the bell go off and end the round, but yeah, I'm sorry about the delays and all that, but still, I have to concur with you guys. It just seems to me like with this fight coming up on both the co-main event and the main event, everybody's just fighting for a spot on the rankings at this point. I mean, Weidman's not even on the top 15. But Akhmedov is way down low, like maybe 13 or 12 or something like that. But you got a guy who has really just turned some heads recently, Derek Brunson. So you wonder what to do with him next. You're right. What do you do with Derek Lewis if he wins? Well, it's a moment of triumph for Houston and for our hometown. But Olenek, same thing. It's just you're right. The three workhorses that are out there are Stipe, DC, and Ngannou. So, but again, if you have that, you're going to have the wrestling of Curtis Blades versus Derek Lewis possibly next. They keep fighting for rankings at this point. So,
excuse me, I didn't speak on the Weidman fight. That's because I don't like Chris Weidman.
Okay.
He dethroned my boy Anderson, and then he broke my boy Anderson's leg, and Anderson really hasn't been the same. So, anytime I see Chris Weidman fight, I hope he gets knocked out.
I'll give you that one. It's just kind of one of those. The only story that I have is something that we threw out there. Me and JG mentioned this earlier. Was because Brunson unfortunately did beat Anderson Silva. Would you feel better about yourself if somehow that Weidman got teamed up, got put in the cage with Brunson, and Brunson just beat the brakes off of him?
After that last Derek Brunson fight, I didn't get to watch it live. I had to go back to ESPN Plus and watch it, but. After watching that Derek Brunson fight, heck yeah, Derek Brunson looked dang good in that last fight. Minus the Wesley Snipes hairdo from Demolition Man.
Roger that. Before we move on, before we even get into the Words Matter segment, I got to bring something up. Ray JG, I didn't even give you your due diligence, man. You jumped over the guardrail, MMA glove on one hand and a hockey stick in the other, but we didn't talk about what's on the front of your shirt, buddy. You got a chance here. Let's talk about this guy right here.
The one, the only, Sugar Show 2.0, Sean O'Malley. Like I said, if you have listened to 1 second of my podcast at all, you've heard my love for this guy. As a matter of fact, Big Russ actually hooked me up with another Sean O'Malley t-shirt back in the day for my birthday. So like I said, I've been a fan of this guy forever. and he is coming up. He's actually going to be the co-main event on the Stipe and DC card on August 15th.
Indeed,
So
yes.
I love this guy. I've been high on him for a long time, and I think the UFC is treating him right. You know, to kind of touch on what we spoke on earlier, is like how sometimes one of my other fighters is a perfect example of this. One of my other favorites is Darren Till, and it's pretty widely accepted that this guy was catapulted to superstardom pretty quickly, which was great. You know, when he did the Cowboy Cerrone thing, but it also turned into, I don't want to, kind of negatively affecting him with, you know, he got the big name fights, he got the Masvidal, he got the Woodley, but I mean, he ended up looking very green in those situations. You know, he was very, very outclassed in every way you could possibly be outclassed. So that, you know, kind of catapulted him too quickly. With the Sugar Show, this guy has been on the UFC's radar for a long time. He, you know, was with the Contender Series, which starts tonight, by the way. But he was in the Tuesday Night Contender Series, you know, 3 or 4 years ago, whatever it was. That's where I kind of fell in love with his style. He's flashy. He's got the karate look to him. Kind of looks like Ben Askren if you stretched him out and gave him tattoos. But like he kind of has been a slow burn in the UFC because I think they can notice the superstardom that comes with him. And it is going to be fun to watch him fight Marlon Chito Vera this weekend, because if everyone remembers 2 years ago, that was originally supposed to be the fight that Sugar Sean was supposed to have. And then the picogram thing happened with his caffeine pills that he took. And then USADA ends up apologizing, saying, oh, that's our bad. Well, whatever. Thanks for taking 2 years off my life. But like, this fight has been burning for 2 years. That's a lot. And Chito Vera is not a slouch. I mean, this dude's like 27, 28 years old. He has multiple fights in the UFC. He's legit in that division of killers already. But I really think this is going to be the fight where people start giving Sean O'Malley the respect that he deserves, because a lot of people, the one knock on him has been, oh, who has he fought? Who has he fought? And I get that. I really do. And, you know, his last fight with Eddie Wineland, who is the definition of a veteran. I mean, he knocked him out standing right in front of him after a spinning body kick, then just drops him with a right hand. And still people find something negative to say. So I'm looking forward to it, because I've never put money on a UFC fight in my life, and I'm about to just bet the house on this dude. Because if we go back in time, if I would have bet on Sean O'Malley as many times as I wanted to, I'd be a very rich man at this moment. So I think that he's going to just dismantle Chito Vera, and then he's going to slowly work his way up that division. And I'm glad that the UFC is doing with him the things that they're doing. They're not just shooting him up to fight, you know, for the title immediately. This is let him earn his stripes, and then he's going to really prove that he can bring in a lot of cash for both the company and for people who bet on him.
Did he get a face tattoo?
He has multiple ones. he's got a heart on one eye, and then he's got sugar above his eyebrow.
That's okay.
He's becoming more colorful these days. Yeah.
I knew the one by his eye, but I didn't know what this about his eye said.
Yeah, it says sugar, and he's also like, I mean, the guy, think what you want about him. I get it. He's not everybody's cup of tea, but he knows how to market himself better than anybody I've ever seen. I mean, dude, he's got this crazy hair, this like fro, I guess you could call it, and he dyes it. Like he went on record by saying whoever he's fighting, if they're like from a different country or whatever, he's gonna dye his hair the colors of their flag. Who thinks of that? Like, what?
That was the one thing that the little redheaded girl had to give her criticism on Sean O'Malley. I just said, yeah, he does look like the Dennis Rodman of MMA these days. But other than that, she doesn't know the whole rest of the story. We're getting it now.
Yeah, and it's cool. So he's going to go out there, and when he fights Cheeto, he's going to have like one side yellow and one side blue. So another thing for all of his antics and everything that he is, people don't understand how serious this guy is about the fight game. He legitimately bought a octagon. So he has his own UFC regulation size octagon that he trains in. Like, okay, this dude's serious, and the fact that he can market himself and kind of somewhat play, I think he is fully embodying and taking advantage of what Henry Cejudo had in
Yeah.
mind. You know, he's actually doing it. You know, Cejudo became this thing. I don't even want to call it whatever, this thing that everybody, every person, even if you loved Henry Cejudo, at the end of his career, everyone hated him. And I don't think that was his original intent. I think it kind of turned into that at the end because it wasn't going his way. That's not how you market yourself. This is how.
Cejudo definitely embraced being the heel. He definitely, and like you said about Sean, he's one hell of a Twitter follower too. Follower really?
Yeah.
Twitter follow. Because he's pretty funny on Twitter too. But yeah, to piggyback off what you said, that is somebody who knows how to market themselves and to not only market themselves well outside of the octagon, but back it up inside the octagon as well.
You know, sometimes the best referees in MMA know when to stop things at the right time, but when it comes to things like professional wrestling, the best referees just let them go. So I had to just let Ray and JG and Russ and duke it out a little bit. Not duke it out, but have the floor on that because as we're about to cover here, the words matter. But before we get started on this part, I have a complaint. I have something to get off my chest. I have a bone to pick with both of you. And I mean that. Ray and JG, Loud and Opinionated, you're taking everything that I work for. I'm going to fight both your freaking rear ends because this is not some random guys that are wearing your paraphernalia. This is not some guy named Roy White who does a blog for the Cowboys and comes on your show. This is that real stuff, man. I'm the one that you should be fighting. Now we got the bad acting out of the way. The words matter for the day is when Nate Diaz got on the microphone and called out Conor McGregor. So starting with Loud and Opinionated, just your memories of that call out that led to the two biggest draws in the history of the MMA. You know, this is where we focus on the words. We focus on the narrative. Do you think that that's what catapulted these guys into finally getting on the microphone and coattailing and asking for who they wanted? Or how do you think that has changed the course of our entertainment era of MMA, Russ?
Actually, I honestly don't think it was Nate Diaz that started that. I want to say it was your buddy Chael Sonnen.
Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck. It was him, but that was a little more eloquent. It was a little bit more profane when Nate Diaz got on.
I think with Chael basically not really saying that he wants to fight anybody, but just saying somebody sucks, and that was one of those things that it was a catapult for Chael. I mean, look what it did for him. But look what it did for Nate and Conor. But you're also talking about two of the best trash talking guys in the UFC. With Nate's an absolute moron who just does not give a crap about what anybody says. He doesn't care how he says it. He doesn't care who he offends. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. The only thing that Nate Diaz cares about is Nate Diaz. And with Conor cares about making money. And the best way for Conor to make money is to get under the skin of his opponents. And the best way for him to do that is using his mouth. And Conor will go down in UFC history as one of the greatest trash talkers out there. There's unless there's somebody else that's going to come up. Colby's pretty good. Colby Covington is pretty good at it, but he doesn't hold the flame to Conor McGregor. You want to talk about how words matter. That's some guys made their millions with their mouth, and Conor was one of them. He started it with his mouth, and he backed it up into the ring. His mouth got him his fight with Mayweather, and we know the millions that he made off of that. So with Nate grew up in Stockton. He likes to fight, and he's good at it. He may be one of the dumbest trash talkers, but he's a trash talker. And any fight that Nate is a part of, I'm going to watch because I want to see the trash talk. Same thing with Connor. Same thing with Colby. Same thing with Usman. You know, and that's where now you're getting guys who will talk trash more, and it's making it entertaining. It's almost, dare I say, WWE-ish.
You know, even before that, I'd even say that before these guys solidified it, you're right. I believe very much that Connor did take Chael's title in every way. But before that, you had another guy that was turning heads with his words and saying things that set people off, and that was Tito Ortiz. Whether I like him or not, the Zuffa days were run by him when it came to his mouth. But anything you want to mention on that one, Ray and JG?
Yeah, I think that you got to take other things into consideration when it comes to trash talk. And what I mean by that is a lot of people aren't stupid. And I'm not a WWE fan, but I understand its appeal. I mean, it's a worldwide global thing. I have been to 2 WWE events and I had the time of my life. I didn't know what the hell was going on, but it was fun, you know? So like, but the point I'm trying to make is the fans didn't come to MMA to say, oh, what's going to happen behind the scenes? Did you see what he said on Twitter? Like, that's not what we came here for. And if you've been here for a long time, you know, like you said, like the fact that we can name the trash talkers immediately off of our head, you know, there's 500 people on the roster. We can name you the 5 or 6 trash talkers just like that. So, you know, I think that kind of lends itself to what we're getting at here. But the point I'm trying to make is you have to have some sense of believability. You have to have some sense of, for instance, Jorge Masvidal. You know, he has all of his famous one-liners. He has this, he has that. You know, he kind of walks around with his he's got his sideways hat on, and you know, his street Jesus swag and everything. Anyone who doesn't believe that, go back and look up in the very beginning of YouTube. Go look at his backyard fight videos with Kimbo. That dude is not faking an ounce of anything inside of him. Same thing with Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz has a hard time with the English language as is. You know, he stumbles over basic verbs and adjectives and sentence structure daily, but that is what it is. But, you know, I think that the reason he has so much appeal is because Nate Diaz is Nate Diaz. I firmly believe that if the UFC wasn't even a thing, Nate Diaz would be Nate Diaz. Now, Henry Cejudo, dude, you were an Olympic wrestler. You're up there holding gold medals. You've been in interviews showing how polite you are. And now you do all this. No one believes it. Colby Covington, you went to the extreme with everything. I mean, people didn't believe that from the get-go, which is why they wrote it off. Like, the ones who do it, and none more so than Conor McGregor, that guy is the epitome of trash talk, swag, but believability, because he is what he is. He's walking in there with his McGregor walk. He's got the Irish flag over his shoulders. I mean, like, then he goes and says all these things in, like, off the top of his head. The quickness, the wittiness that he has, you can't fake that. That's just real. That's like a talent almost. And look at him, follow him on social media, or Google him, or look up any YouTube video with Conor McGregor. There is all the trash talk, but then there's that piston of a left hand too. So, like, I mean, there's got to be a sense of believability both in the ring and with the trash talk.
I have to concur with both of you on that one. It's just, you know, we're getting to these segments because I just believe that, you know, we are in an entertainment era where people have learned how to get on the mic. But you're right, there are people that have not. You're right. Triple C wants to pretend like he can get on the mic. It's like he took the advice of Chael of saying, you know, nobody knows who you are. Get out of your own dadgum way. And then he tries this little magic tricks out of a hat thing that's nobody's buying. On Colby Covington's part, I'll give him nothing more than a carbon copy. All you got to do is look at his walkout from Kurt Angle's intro music, and everybody's yelling, you suck. But there's a reason they're yelling, you suck, not just because they want to embrace their old memories. It's because we see right through the fact that you took a little piece of Tito, a little piece of Connor, and then you took a little piece of Chael and mixed it up in a blender, and you expect us to believe this. With the fans, you're right, the fans are not stupid, the ones that follow long enough. But again, the words they use get people into the arenas. They had to cut off people for the press conference for Khabib and Conor. Well, you wonder why. Well, that's because the words matter, because people want to hear what's going to be said. I agree with you on that one. Rust at Connor's mouth got him in with Floyd Mayweather. His mouth might marrow get him in with Manny Pacquiao at this point. All you got to do is look at social media. I mean, so the acceptance is there in Filipino language. But either how. Guys, I thank you so much for your time, but I want to give you all a little bit of the free floor here because once again, I feel like just because we're hitting rounds, we got our we don't have to follow exactly the same verbatim what other shows do. But giving it to you for a minute, Loud and Opinionated, anything that you're really looking forward to until next time, anything you want to get off your chest about MMA, let it rip, my friend.
I think we're all looking forward to August 15th. I mean, let's be honest. There's some good fights this weekend, but I think we're 90% of our eggs are in the Stipe DC3 basket right now.
Yeah, it feels like placeholders until we get to Stipe and DC3. But
yeah,
don't want to call that against Flyers. That sounds a little disrespectful, but it's just, we're anticipating 2 weeks away. It was like, we got some fights. Oh, man, I can't wait for this one.
Other than that, coming up on my show, I get to sit down with a good friend of mine this week, Mr. Josh Birch. Going to do that on Thursday, and that should be out Friday morning. And then I think I'm hooking up with you, YFB, this weekend. So
this is true. This is true. We're gonna finally try Dallas on air for the umpteenth time since COVID-19 hit.
I feel like we are the modern day Khabib Ferguson.
I think so.
But other than that, got some shirts coming out soon. So look for your Loud and Opinionated shirt.
There we go. Loud and Opinionated merch, people. JG, what you got for us, my friend?
So just first things first, Russell's having our buddy Josh Birch on his show, which is awesome. Josh was on my show a couple times and he couldn't be a nicer person, very talented guy. So make sure everybody listening, go over to Loud and Opinionated, go give Josh Birch Music a follow. He is one of the hardest working guys that I know as far as like honing in his craft. So that's a legitimate plug there because I hope that y'all get some traction with that episode. He's a good dude. So that's number one. Number two, for all the fight fans, I'm assuming if you made it this far, I'm going to talk a little bit more about UFC here. Pay attention to the Dana White Contender Series. It starts tonight. There have massive names that have came out of here in recent history. Okay, so Sean O'Malley, that's huge. Dan Ige, Edmund Shabazian, Jeff Neal. These are huge title contender names that are being pumped into the system on this. Granted, it's Tuesday night. I understand people don't want to stay up late and all that. Record it. Check it out. This is something that's really, really good. These guys are legitimately going out there fighting for a contract. So if they impress, bam, they got their name out there. And who knows, maybe you'll be like me and you'll find yourself your own Sean O'Malley that you fall in love with, and then you can watch him climb up the ranks. So it's legit and it's a lot of fun to watch. And another thing, Jared Cannonier fighting Robert Whittaker, dude, I'm all over that. Jared Cannonier has been slept on for way too long. Dude used to be a heavyweight. I cannot wait for that fight.
That is going to be a good one. I'm glad you guys got a chance to put your plugs in there. One last thing I will say, if some of y'all have not thought about getting Pluto TV, I do not have any plugs for this. No disclaimer, no affiliates, no sponsor, no nothing. I say that because August 7th, that is going to be a main event for my guy. My fighting guy is going to be fighting, having a second run around with Benson Henderson. So if y'all want to check it out, it's free on Pluto TV. Bellator MMA will have Michael Chandler versus Benson Henderson 2, and I will be checking that out. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show today. We'll definitely do more of these. This was our first official triple threat, and we will see you guys the next time around. Until then, this has been the YFB Triple Threat. Peace.